Welcome to the Lowe Post Podcast on a Monday afternoon, a lovely Monday afternoon here on the East Coast, where it was another strange and interesting weekend in the National Basketball Association. We focused on the East at the end of last week with the great Doris Burke. We're going to go West this week, which means it's time for Tim MacMahon. How you doing, sir?
Howdy, partner. Doing all right. It is always a pleasure to jump on here.
Beautiful forest green background. Just love the forest green background. I got the same color in my office. It's a great color.
Dark Everglade, I'm told, is the actual color here.
Oh, excuse me.
It might surprise you to know that I did not have anything to do with the color choice, but it is nice.
I got to choose the color for this room. This one.
You got that one room.
No further comment will be made on that. The biggest story of the weekend obviously was not really a basketball story, although it affects a basketball team that is currently number 2 in the Western Conference with, I thought, legitimate hopes of making a long run, perhaps as long as a finals run. And that's in Memphis, where Ja Morant is going to be away from the team for at least 2 games. And I suspect longer than that, if not much longer than that, after a very early morning, not even late night, early morning,
right,
Instagram live video on his Instagram live, reportedly in Denver still after the Nuggets Grizzlies game there, at a strip club, flashed what appeared to be a handgun. We don't know a lot of things, right? Like we don't even know for sure if it was a real gun. You have to question. You just have to make sure, right? You just have to make sure. We don't know if it was.
I'll say this: if it wasn't a real gun, I'm pretty sure that
we'd have heard by now.
Yeah, I mean, Ja admitted that he royally screwed up. That says enough there.
All right, so let's pause at that then. We don't know where it came from, whose it is, where it's registered, whether it was on a plane, whether it was loaded. And if it was loaded, at just how dangerous, dangerous in the most serious and literal sense that whole situation was and could have been. We don't know how long he might be suspended for, if indeed the league ends up suspending him, as they have for many players who have been entangled in gun-related incidents before. We don't know how long he's going to be away from the team. We do know, Tim, that this is the latest in a string of at least now 4 known incidents of violence, either committed or threatened, or in the case of one incident with his mother at a mall, just kind of an escalating tension situation that has been reported. And we can go through them all later. One was at a Pacers game where members of the Pacers thought that they saw a laser pointer pointed at them from a car that Morant was in, and assumed, and it has not been proven out, there's been no proof of it anyway, that the laser pointer came from a gun.
But again, that's a case where if it was just a laser pointer, it was still, the point of doing that is to imply some sort of a threat after a confrontation that started during the game involving the Pacers and, Ja's associates courtside, and then continued post-game. I mean, it's just, there's been a lot of problematic situations, some of which have come to light. And then the Grizzlies now have to confront what have long been concerns developing about Ja's lifestyle. And I honestly believe this can be a good thing for Ja and a good thing for the franchise, because, the whole, covering your eyes and your ears, and you can't do that anymore. The time for enabling, I think their decision before was keep enabling or risk alienating. Well, look, it's a problem. He needs help. You have to help him as a franchise, and you're helping yourselves in the same way. And it's not about, hey, we're coming to discipline you. And I think the risk of alienating isn't a factor at this point. It's Ja, we all want you to fulfill your potential. None of us want to see you squander this unbelievable talent and opportunity. Let's work together to make sure that you are focused and can fulfill your potential, become one of the great players this league's ever seen. I think there is opportunity here for Ja and the Grizzlies.
Well, and also make sure nothing horrible happens to anybody, like
Right.
in any such incident that may occur, because this is now a major potential safety, life-threatening issue if weapons are involved. And yeah, I mean, I don't, I can't say that I know Ja Morant. I've interviewed him a couple times here and there. The Grizzlies even now are wrapping their arms around him. And they all say almost to a person, like, he's a really good teammate. He's a really good
phenomenal teammate.
He doesn't it's been told to me, like, don't let this nighttime nightclub stuff, even leaving aside the dangerous stuff. Like, he's 23 and he has so far been capable until now of fulfilling all of his basketball obligations at the highest possible level. Like, teammates like to play with them. That's what part of what makes this sad to me is on the court, the way he plays, the selflessness with which he plays, the edge with which he plays is exactly what you want out of a young franchise player. Obviously, off the court, it's somewhat of a different story. It's also been told to me, and I don't know what you've heard, that this is his escapades off the floor are his and his inner circles. There's not a lot of other Grizzlies teammates, I think, going out with him in these situations. And I thought Jalen Rose just nailed this when he talked from the perspective of, we're all going to hear this cliche of he's got to change the people around him, the people around him, the people around him, the people around him. We're just going to hear that over and over again. And Jalen said, okay, well, like, be that as it may, they're around you because you are the financial lifeblood now of an entire ecosystem, and they will follow your lead. If you decide tomorrow you want to cut all this out, you never want to go out again, you want to eat healthy, whatever it is you want to do, none of those people are going to stand in your way. You are, as he put it, the breadwinner for an entire ecosystem now. So it is, in the end, kind of on him. And I think, you're right. And the Grizzlies are right to say maybe some good comes out of this, but it's really just, you shake your head sometimes at how fast these stories can change. Like, the Grizzlies are rising fast. They're everyone's sort of darling Cinderella team. A couple that pickup game incident at his house kind of got publicized a few months ago. It's not awesome. It's weird. It's not quite a he said, but there's some facts in dispute. His agents and his lawyers would come out and dispute everything. And now all of a sudden you wake up and there's this video clip and the guy's not on the team for now. It's a lot to wrap your head around.
Well, and he did it to this one in particular. This isn't a case where, hey, he's out partying in the club and someone sneaks a cell phone video. Like, dude, you did this to yourself, days after a Washington Post story that, brought out some other facts that hadn't been reported from the pickup game scrap and the aftermath of that. And then this incident at the mall, which, look, and Ja's not the first and won't be the last young superstar athlete who, there are some challenges that come along with, wanting to, continue, being buddies with the guys that you grew up with, and you've got all this money and the lifestyle, and what's good fun, what's across the line. We've seen this in the NBA, we've seen it in the NFL. I covered the Cowboys with Des Bryant, and there are a lot of similarities between Ja and Des. One of which, frankly, is I really like both the guys. Like, I've really enjoy interacting with them. I find them to be, generally fun personalities, obviously spectacular athletes. And Des, he got in a lot of trouble early in his career, and a lot of it was like He had an incident at a mall in Dallas where there's a confrontation with security. It was over sagging his pants. And, there's just all kinds of a bunch of just, there wasn't the gun stuff with Dez, but there's just a bunch of stuff. Right. And Dez tweeted the other day, and I'm going to use the word dudes instead of a word that he uses here, but he says, if you know and love Ja Morant, put your arms around him and tell him the truth. Ja, you got a special ability. Them other dudes around you don't. And if the dudes around you loved you, it's no way you'd be flashing that gun. And, it just goes on. Basically says, he ends up make peace with whatever problems you're dealing with and elevate, all love on this end. And again, to me, if I'm Ja, I want to listen to somebody like Jalen Rose, who can relate. He has been in your shoes. To Des Bryant, very similar situations. To Steven Jackson, to Matt Barnes. These guys aren't coming to they're not speaking out of judgment. They're speaking out of sympathy. They're speaking, hey, I've been here. I've done things that just are way over the line. And, you've got to figure it out. And really, it just comes down to Ja has got to just slow down. Remember, what did you dream about growing up? What are your real priorities? Were your priorities, drinking Casamigos in the club until 4 or 5 in the morning on a regular basis and, throwing guns around and no, dude, you grew up wanting to be an NBA superstar, winning championships. All this other stuff is not what it can kill your dreams. It's not what you dreamed of being.
And so he is ready to play exactly that role, not just the spectacular athleticism and the highlight plays, but I mean, you talk to Taylor Jenkins as I have about Ja, and it's like this dude, he watches film. He does all the stuff you want out of a franchise player. Watches film. It's like Coach Jenkins told me he'll come up to me during a game and he'd be like, hey, that last play or like 10 plays ago. And he'll just describe this mental snapshot and say, what if we moved that guy over there and then that cut would open up? And Taylor Jenkins would be like, damn, this dude just saw all that in the game. And I have always said on this podcast, the best thing about him as a franchise player is he is taking everyone with him on the ride. He is not existing. He doesn't monopolize the ball. He doesn't make the team stylistically about him. He'll cut off the ball. Like he'll make himself an off-ball threat. Defense is hit or miss, but he'll like throw himself at the rim with his arms up, verticality wise, like try to block shots. And my favorite thing about him is when he's on a fast break and he can go 1-on-3 because he's Ja freaking Morant, he will wait and see, all right, who's behind me, who's going to be open in the trail spot. And so that's what makes
and not only will he wait and see, he will manipulate, he will shift gears, he will shift angles, he will get guys, to create situations where he knows, hey, if I do this guy's going to come and I can get him a lob. Stylistically, very different players. I've always compared his leadership style to Damian Lillard, who I think Damian Lillard, like you can say, hey, he hasn't been in the finals, he hasn't reached.
Oh no, you're talking to the Dame true believer right here,
dude. Dame to me is as good of a leader as there is in the NBA. Now, Dame also, from everything that I know, everything that we see, Dame is also a phenomenal off-court role model, family man, role model. Just got to get, like, when he's at the facility, when he's at the arena, I think he's a phenomenal leader, a phenomenal teammate. Don't let the other stuff ruin it. Don't let the other stuff ruin it.
Yeah, he's 23 years old, very young. You hope this is a pivot point in a good direction. And, look, I mean, basketball wise, we are basketball people. I mean, this is the second seed in the Western Conference that's now in total disarray, and it got lost because of the Jaws stuff. Brandon Clark being out for the season and maybe out. I mean, and he tore his Achilles, so that's a year potentially.
Yeah,
is a huge deal. He is a fantastic two-way backup big, can play with Jaren Jackson Jr., can spot you minutes with Steven Adams if you need to. It's not ideal, but can be the only big man on the floor if you want to play him with Aldama at the 4, which they do. One of the league's great rim runners, floater artists, switchable on defense, can play traditional defense too. Just like a classic, really good bench player / spot starter who has proven he's very, very playable for big minutes in the postseason. And for 3, 4, 5 years now, one of the constant Memphis things is when Brandon Clark and Jaren Jackson Jr. are on the floor together, they win by a lot. They win those minutes by a lot. It's a killer combination. And Brandon Clark's come on this podcast before. He seems like a wonderful guy. I love watching him play. Best wishes to him. That is a huge loss for a Memphis team that, I've called them regular season deep, but maybe not postseason deep. And they're less postseason deep than they were before this. As for Ja, we got to just sort of hit the brakes on we'll see how long he's out. I think the NBA is going to take its time figuring out what happened. I checked with several experts over the weekend who say the league has pretty wide leeway to suspend not just players, but of team officials, coaches, whatever, under the conduct detrimental to the league part of the Constitution. If you look back at, everyone remembers the Gilbert Arenas, Javaris Crittenden thing where they got suspended for huge amounts of time. There have been other gun-related suspensions. Steven Jackson got 7 games for firing a gun outside a strip club. He pled guilty to some criminal charges in that. Raymond Felton pleaded guilty to a weapons charge for waving an unregistered gun at, I think, his estranged wife at the time. He got 4 games. So I who knows how long it will be.
Well, Ramona Shelburne and Liz Merrill just reported that police in Colorado are investigating, basically trying to figure out if he's broken any gun laws. So there might be some legal situation here. I
think there will be, and I think it's one of the things that the NBA. This is just reported. You're saying I am not on my phone right. I don't have the Twitter notifications up right now. But yeah, this is Steven Jackson pleaded guilty. I'm reading an old AP story, to a felony count of criminal recklessness for firing a gun outside an Indiana strip club, and Felton pleaded guilty to attempted criminal possession of a weapon and criminal possession of a firearm. You got 4 games. So the league will let all this take its course.
Well, and the league's also going to look into where exactly, and they're going to try to figure out, where did this gun come from? Whose gun is it? How did it get to Denver?
Was it in was it in what constitutes an NBA workplace, which I think will include a plane or a bus or things of that. It won't include a nightclub, but it would include those things, which is obviously what separated the Arenas incident, which is a lot of things separated that. But in the workplace separated it, was one of the separators. 2 people having a confrontation was another gigantic separator. The potential for just massive, horrible violence. We'll see where this happens. I just don't even know what to predict in terms of when we will see Ja Morant play basketball again.
Yeah, and then look, there's no point in speculating on that. Obviously, the league is conducting an investigation. The Grizzlies have essentially, now to be clear, the Grizzlies have not suspended him. He is away from the team. He is nowhere have they said suspended.
Look, I will tell you this: if he came to the team and said, "I'd like to play tomorrow," I don't think they would let him play tomorrow. So they can call it what they want, but technically he's not suspended. You're right.
Right? Is he getting paid? Because there's a huge difference there. But Taylor Jenkins was very clear that they announced he'd be away for at least 2 games, and Taylor Jenkins basically said it's indefinite. Like, they're not putting a timetable on it. There's a lot of things that have to be figured out. Including, Ja said he's going to get help. What exactly does that, what kind of help? And look, they are under no obligation to, make that information public, but it's certainly part of the process that they need to figure out. And, again, when I talk about this being an opportunity for Ja and the Grizzlies to really just, kind of make sure, hey, this is the right path. We're all committed together to helping you get on that path, to keeping you on that path. There's going to be some very difficult conversations and decisions that need to be made. I think one easy one, John needs to have full-time security, whether it's paid for by the team or paid for by himself. And that's as much to protect him from himself and from poor decisions as it is to, protect him from any other potential threats that might arise. But I think that, there needs to be some difficult conversations had with T. Morant, with Ja's father. I think that the T. Morant as a celebrity has not, it's gone too far.
And it's amazing to think that is, I mean, I don't know T. Morant, so I don't know him from a hole. I've never talked to him, but we're like less than a year removed from T. Morant versus Karl Towns' dad being kind of like an adorable playoff trash talking dad story, but not that again, you couldn't. Yeah.
I think T, look, I like T too. I like T a lot, but he needs to be a supportive father. He doesn't need to be a celebrity. And those two things, there might be some, I don't think it's possible to continue really being this celebrity figure and being a supportive father. And I'll just say one thing, just really bluntly, T cannot be drinking courtside at every game anymore. I'm sorry, but like when Ja is in this situation, that it's not a good look. I don't think
you're just saying from the perspective of optics, because it doesn't really bother me. I mean, I don't think it's an awesome look, but I think knew what he wants.
I'm saying I think that it is quite counterproductive, and I'm saying when T has been involved in a confrontation during the game with the Indiana Pacers, where Ja's best friend steps on the court.
Yeah, they're on the court.
Come on. And then, the whole Shannon Sharp thing, there's none of this is in any way, shape, or form remotely in the best interest of Ja Morant and the Grizzlies. I think that stuff needs to calm down. And then I think that they really need to have some serious conversations about, hey, do you need to have a large traveling party separate from the team on a regular basis at road games? I think that needs to be a conversation.
That's who's going out. Like, this is not a case of Ja and like 5 teammates are going out. Someone said he's kind of a lone wolf to me as a nighttime lifestyle guy on the team, lone wolf on the team. Like, he's got his crew with him. Yeah. I think that's all. I think that's all fair. I mean, it's like, it's how about just let's not have weapons around,
right. And look, Ja, hey, the dude has been, and look, we can go down the list of guys who've had a really good time until the wee hours of the morning on a regular basis and still produced. Ja's on that list. He's averaging like 28-8, right, for a team that's number 2 seed in the West. But man, if you're trying to fulfill your potential, that drastically diminishes your odds. Living that life, it's going to be difficult, especially as a small guard who relies on athleticism, to be durable, to have longevity. There's a lot of Allen Iverson comparisons on the floor and off the floor.
Well, there's the late nights, which are kind of endemic to the NBA lifestyle, right? Your game ends at 10, you get out of the arena 11:30, you're all amped up, you're a night owl. And if you're up at night, like if I'm up at 11:30, it's midnight or 1 a.m, I'm probably not. No, there might be a beverage in my hand. There's like some chance that there's a beverage in my hand. That's sort of baked into the lifestyle. And there's that. And you're right that we've seen some players who rely on athleticism, who live that lifestyle. They hit 30, 31, 32, and the aging curve suddenly goes through the roof. There's that. Yeah. Then there's the gun thing. Those are separate things to me. You want to be that guy who's living the life, going out till 3 a.m, having fun, having some drinks. Like, cool. That's not for me to judge. Lots of players before you, lots of players after you've done that. I lived in New York City as a single guy for a long time in my 20s. I had some late nights myself, but then there's the thing where like, oh, there are guns being waved around. All of a sudden, all sorts of horrible outcomes are now being put in play. We all are rooting for Ja Morant. We're all rooting for the Grizzlies. They are potentially one of the teams of the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years in the NBA because, in large part, of moving up from number 8 to number 2 in the lottery in the year that Ja Morant was the number 2 pick. Can we talk about basketball now?
We sure can. Sure, podcast.
Let's tie a bunch of things together in the Western Conference. The Grizzlies being in a little. I'm almost tempted to be like, are we writing off this season for the Grizzlies? Because it's feeling close there. We'll see. We'll just have to see where Morant comes back. But they are now only a game ahead of the Kings for the number 2 spot. The Suns, who you just saw in person yesterday, and boy, oh boy, give me another Luka Booker series. Give me, and I loved what Book said after.
With KD Kyrie as a subplot?
Well, yeah, seriously, KD Kyrie, I just fine. What I just like what I'd rather KD Warriors is almost a more interesting potential subplot in the postseason to me than KD Kyrie, and we'll talk about that with Kendra later. Luka Booker is fucking awesome, and excuse my French, but I love.
I think that was English.
I don't know why we say it like that. It was English. And I loved what Book said after the game when he was like, you know, you guys are sitting here asking me about like trash talking and going forehead to forehead. Have you ever gone forehead to forehead with another in a argument with another person? Have you ever gone forehead to forehead?
I will say not since Luke has been alive, at least.
It seems an odd way to. It seems an odd way. There's to argue. But I love when he was like, "You guys."
Well, and they both start smirking because, like, look, no one's throwing punches. They're not going to get suspended.
I also just can't. My brain is now broken. Where one of the first 3 thoughts that comes into my head during a thing like that is, if one of you has COVID, the other one's going to get it. Can you like separate from each other a little bit? That's like very, very close. The spittle is flying back and forth. But I love when Book was like, you guys always say back in the day, so-and-so hated so-and-so and everyone's buddy in AAU. Well, like we got some real smoke here. Don't you guys like, this is what you want to see.
And he's absolutely right. And look, Suns fans right now are mad at me. I think
they are. Why?
I think Booker might be a little annoyed because I said when it first happened, and I saw Luka very clearly say, I'm not going to make the producer work as hard as you do. Shut the bleep up. And so I tweet that and I say, Booker taunted Luka after Luka missed, what would have been the game tying layup. And then I said, well, I saw a replay. I said, Booker might have been talking to the referee, which is an indirect taunt. People are indirect taunt. They're all mad at me. I'm like, dude, look. Luka blew a bunny that would have tied the game because he missed it. The game is over with 3 seconds left, saying that's a charge, that's a charge, that's a charge. Basically, you're saying, Luka, you're talking to the ref, but you're saying it so Luka hears you. Dude, you charged and still blew a layup, and we just won on your home floor. It's basically what you're saying. And if you think that's an inaccurate interpretation, trust me on this. That's exactly the way that Luka interpreted it. What Booker was saying very clearly. And I've got no problem with Booker doing that, right? Especially, look, there is history there. There is beef, bad blood. The whole Luka walking off the floor after game 5, the Suns are up 3-2. Everybody acting tough when they up. And then game 7, the little, looking up at Booker, just smirking. Hey,
that's that photo of the smirk is
iconic.
Is the trash talking version of the Wade LeBron alley-oop, like arms out, are you not entertained photo. That's how good that photo is.
It's a smirking version of AI's step over Ty Lue.
Ooh, I like that. I like that, which I guess that does have a great still photo of it. Actually, the one where we're seeing Iverson as if he's coming right at us, that angle from the opposing, from the opposite baseline.
So Luka and hey, Luka, it's funny. Every time there's something, Luka, basically, he started, whether he's arguing with a fan, whether he's arguing with the Pistons assistant coach,
Hey, by the way,
he's arguing with another player.
Speaking of that, do you remember when you and I both called Luka the biggest whiner in the league about referees and what happened as a consequence of that? And like, and
you took all the shrapnel on that one. Old Cuban blast away at you. And that's what you get for being a big name. I'm just a role player, baby.
Even Dave Pash on the play-by-play yesterday is just making jokes about like Luka's always complaining about something. Like I'm sorry to be the bearer of truth. The guy never stops complaining to the refs.
Well, just if you don't believe us, ask Jason Kidd after they blow a 27-point lead, and he wants to, And so look,
spicy.
And again, I don't have a problem at all. I encourage it. No problem with Booker talking trash. I don't care if he waits till 3 seconds. Luka does. I don't. With Luka talking trash, I don't have any beef with that. Now, I do think Luka's constant whining to refs, I think that is oftentimes counterproductive, not just in his ability to get calls, but, Jay Kidd has said it very clearly. There's times where Luka's not playing defense, whether he's not running back on defense, or there'll be times he's arguing in the middle of a possession. It's like, oh, well, hey, Luka, you're get your head turned arguing with the ref, and guess what? Your guy just back cut for a layup because you're not even thinking about defense. So that stuff I've got an issue with, but like the beef, the bad blood, the trash talking, I would say the nose to nose stuff. The only problem I have with that is Luka, dude, you just got your 14th technical foul of the season, not to +1 rescinded, but as far as the suspension count goes, you're 2 away. Not smart. That's not smart.
Well, look, Devin Booker's made the finals and has been up in the finals. And Luka's never made the finals. But, man, that playoff loss last year is so bad for Phoenix. And I know that there are all sort of countervailing circumstances and stuff. Luka has that over Booker's head for a long. I think he
outscored them in the first half of the Game 7 on the road. Luka outscored the Phoenix Suns.
I think that requires head-to-head postseason vengeance for Devin Booker
Absolutely.
to get back on equal footing.
Yeah.
Unless they win the title.
Well, yeah, if you win the title, you never have to, whatever. But yeah, you don't get revenge from you're the top seed that goes up 2-0 and then you fall apart in the rest of the series and a historic blowout on your home floor in Game 7.
Okay, subplot. As I'm going to talk about with Kendra, we're not there yet, but there's a potentiality, which is maybe not a word. I don't know, a potentiality. I think that is a word, where the Nuggets are going to be number 1. We know that. And 4 or 5 is Phoenix, now Super Phoenix with Durant, and Golden State at 5. That's far from assured, not even close to assured. But if that ends up being the case, that means a first-round matchup between 2 teams who I believe could win the West, and a potential Denver, whoever wins that series matchup of 2 teams who I believe could win the title at that point in the second round. Standing in the way of that is a potential Phoenix rise up the standings. They're now only 3 games back of the Kings. They are undefeated with Durant. I watched both their games.
2 back of the Kings, 3 of the Grizzlies.
Yeah, 3 in the loss column. I'm looking at the loss column.
Okay.
2 of the Kings, 3 of the Grizzlies in overall standings. I watched both the Chicago game and the Dallas game over the weekend. Largely, they looked exactly like I talked about with Eddie Johnson last week on the pod. Go listen to that if you want to hear Phoenix analysis. So there's that. There is the Memphis-Sacramento race for 2. Memphis has the easiest schedule left in the conference on paper. However,
some challenging circumstances.
The Kings currently own the tiebreaker over Memphis by virtue of a vastly superior conference record. They are 2-2 head-to-head. Beneath that is that tiebreaker would only hold if Sacramento actually wins their division, and Phoenix is in the same division as Sacramento, so that could come into play vis-a-vis Memphis. The Suns have the current tiebreaker 2-0 over the Kings head-to-head if they were to finish tied with 2 games left. So they have 2 games left to try to continue to make up ground. So there's a lot of There's a lot of room for maneuverability here. And the Kings, man, look, we're going to talk about the Mavs in a second and how the Mavs are the scoring machine and defensively challenged defense that we anticipated they would be when they made this seismic trade for Kyrie. There's a team in the West that's like, hey, we've been doing that all year, better than you guys are now. We have the number one offense in the entire NBA by a full point now. The Kings are number one with the Kings are number one by a lot in points.
There you go.
Points per possession. 25th on defense. And there's still reason to think that some of their defense is just bad luck because they don't foul. They get every defensive rebound. They force a decent amount of turnovers. They're allowing a lot of mid-range shots. Teams are just making everything from everywhere against them. Now, I think part of that is because they have no rim defense. They're getting smoked at the rim, just like they did last year. Some of it with the mid-range jumpers and the threes, they might be a little bit better than 25th on defense. They're not going away, man. They're one wing away from being truly, truly interesting to me as like a potential contender. Like, I just think point guard, center, offensively, they are massively skilled with Fox
they are
and Sabonis.
Yeah. And look, I have personally acknowledged to both Monty McNair and Wes Wilcox that my harsh criticism of what at the time I called the Tyrese Halliburton trade was off. And Tyrese Halliburton is exactly who I thought he was, which is one of the rising stars in the NBA. But Sabonis is really, really, really good.
And I think they're going to be a tough out in the play. Everyone is just penning them in as the loser of the 3-6 series. I think they're going to be a tough out. I do think
you're going to have to score a lot of points to beat them. Now, you might score a lot of points. But look, if they play the Mavericks, it's first to 140, right?
It might be. We already saw that game. Hey, that was the first game of Luka Kyrie was against the Kings. They lost on the road.
If they play the Clippers, it's first to 175. Apparently, we've seen that. No, I mean, and look, they obviously are very limited in terms of playoff experience. Harrison Barnes has won a championship. Sabonis has some playoff experience, but we're talking about a franchise that's playoff drought is old enough to drive, right? I'll say this, though. They have been a cojones factor, crunch time killer all season long.
You might have to rename that after De'Aaron Fox, man. Like, that's how much of a cojones factor they've been.
Well, he's definitely the front runner for that. I don't know what exactly goes into the league's rip-off version called the Jerry West Award, but he's definitely the front runner. He's definitely the front runner for who's a bigger deal, me or the logo? Come on.
Hey man, they should redesign that trophy so that it's like a nondescript player doing the Cassell dance. That's what they should do. If they're gonna 100%. Honor you, that's what they should do.
Yeah, but look, Fox has been unreal in the fourth quarter in clutch time all season long. Just getting to the rack, the mid-range game, him and Sabonis just playing off of each other. Malik Monk, especially when Russell Westbrook forgets that he's guarding him and, looks like a puppy dog chasing the ball with the game on the line. Malik Monk's capable of hitting big shots. I don't think they're an easy out. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I think they're a contender. I'm just like, look, if you think it's just going to be, hey, you're playing against the cute little Kings in the first round, you get a pass to the semifinals. I don't think it's going to be easy.
But let's think it out for a second. What if it shakes out that they hold on to 3 or move up to 2, whatever it ends up being? Mm-hmm. They draw Minnesota in the first round or Dallas in the first round, a team that everyone thinks, I think Dallas has more upside than Sacramento because of Luka and the Luka Kyrie combination. But there's really nothing. They're 2-5. We're going to talk about them in a second. They're 2-5 together. There's nothing that really suggests that they should be favorites over the Kings. Minnesota should not be favorites over the Kings. We'll see when Cat comes back. But that's a winnable series. Okay, let's say they win that series. Let's say they get the draw, breaks for them, they win. Then it's 2-3 against the Grizzlies with no Brandon Clark, and let's even assume Ja's back.
Or you might be looking at one of those teams in the second round instead. Because look, I'm not going to sit here and the Grizzlies, obviously, we've just talked about a lot. There's more question marks around the Grizzlies than any team that's going to have a home court advantage in the first round.
I'm just saying
by far.
the King. There is a semi-reasonable world where we wake up and the Kings are in the conference finals. I wouldn't pick it. It's going to depend a lot about who their first round opponent is out of these teams. Because if it's Clippers, Warriors, whatever, I think they're in for an uphill battle. But if it breaks right for them, they're good.
Kings Grizzlies would actually be a fascinating series, and I don't know how much those two markets would drive TV ratings, but it'd be a fascinating series because you have obviously the best offensive team in the league against the best defensive team in the league. And, the biggest on-court, just basketball concern about the Grizzlies to me is, boy, if you make them play in the mud, they're in some ways the total opposite of the old grit and grind Grizzlies who wanted to play in the mud. This team, if you make them play in the mud, they are a mediocre to poor half-court offensive team. Now, if you let them run and gun and fly up and down the floor, Ja's pretty good in the open floor. I mean, he is an absolute force, especially when you've got Bane coming to shoot and Jackson runs the floor really well for a big guy, all those sort of things. The Kings are one team where I don't think the Kings are trying to slow down a series either. So that would be a very interesting series.
Yeah, the Kings. We'll see how their wing rotation is Kevin Huerter, who's a fantastic shooter and probably a slight minus on defense. Harrison Barnes, who's more of a 4 now.
Mm-hmm.
Keegan Murray's a rookie. Malik Monk, Terrence Davis, Davion Mitchell are all kind of undersized coming off the bench for wings anyway, depending on who else is on the floor. I just think you get to the playoffs, you need one better wing than they've got, but you can't have everything.
Let me ask you a question. Aside, who in the West doesn't need one better wing?
No, it's a fair question.
I just watched two teams yesterday. They traded good wings, and I understand why they did it. But boy, Josh Okogie was 0 of 8 from 3 yesterday for the Kings. Torrey Craig was 1 of 4. They got saved by Ish Wainwright coming in and going 4 or 5. I like Ish Wainwright. Right, but I'm saying there's some wing concern there. The Mavericks, dude, I mean, obviously they didn't want to give up Dorian Finney-Smith. There's just no way they were going to get that deal done without doing it. And now a team that, since that trade's dead last in defense, they obviously need another wing stopper. Another 3-and-D guy. And again, I just think you go down the list. Everybody needs another wing. The Grizzlies were trying to throw 114 picks to get Mikal Bridges or OG Anunoby.
Okay, so there are wings and there are wings. And wings can mean a lot of different things. One of the things I mean by it in this playoff context is, do you have a ball handler who's like 6'6" or taller? And the Suns got one. The Mavs still have one. The Kings' lead ball handler is a skinny point guard or a big center who doesn't protect the rim. That's all. But I think the Kings are really good. And so let's talk about your hometown Mavs for a few minutes here. 4-6 since the trade. 2-5 in the 7 games Luka and Kyrie have played together. Offensive rating breaks your laptop. Defensive rating also breaks your laptop. With Luka and Kyrie on the floor, they're +7 per 100 possessions, +35 total points, 186 minutes. They're winning the Kyrie alone minutes handily and getting absolutely shellacked in the Luka only minutes. I think that's largely just kind of random noise. All these
stats are jacked up because it's a small sample size and they played the Spurs.
And also they've played in defense of their bad defensive rating. They have played amongst these 10 games, Philly, the Kings twice, Phoenix with Durant, the Clippers, and the Nuggets. So they're playing just one scoring machine after another. They are only one game over 500 now and 7th in the West. The projection systems that I use have them as a 40 to 45% chance to make the top 6. So better than 50-50 by a hair to be in the play-in, which is not where you want to be. And you watch their defense. We knew, you and I talked about it when they made the trade. they got worse defensively, and they got smaller. And they are really, really small across the board now. And that's manifested itself in some pretty poor defense. You do look at the numbers, though, and you wonder, again, given their schedule, given that teams in this 10-game stretch are shooting 52% on mid-range shots, that's per cleaning the glass, and 75% at the rim. Now, that may be a lasting problem. The rim field goal percentage may just be bad. And the Mavs are 28th in free throws allowed. Are they a little bit better than this defensively? You just watch them, man. They're like,
dude, they're only
Tim Hardaway Jr. is like guarding LeBron and Durant. And like on a nightly basis, you're like, this is the best they got for these matchups.
Justin Holiday, fresh off a buyout,
was starting.
Started a few games. Like Josh Green has had a really good season, but he didn't score yesterday. And he's a really good athlete, 6'6", good athlete, but he's not like, you put him next to Kevin Durant, he looks really small. You put him next to some of these dudes that you got to deal with, and he's not a big wing by any stretch of the imagination. Look, Maxi Kleber can't fix everything, but unless he's really good, like a deep playoff run is extremely unlikely. And it's concerning. Maxi came back from a right hamstring tear where he had surgery. And I guess the tendon was torn, not the muscle. Like, I'm no doctor, despite 8 years in college, but that's how he was able to come back as quickly as he did. But he sat out the Phoenix game because he's experienced soreness, after playing a couple games, I don't have the minutes right in front of me, but like low 20s in the minutes. He's questionable. By the time people hear this, they'll know if he plays or not, probably, but he's questionable for Tuesday night against the Jazz. That's super concerning because he's not just their best rim protector. He might be their best on-ball defender. Reggie Bullock's the other possibility there, but like they need Maxey to be a force. And look, they signed JaVale McGee to be their big rebounder rim protector. They promised him a starting job on a 3-year deal. He was so bad they pulled the plug after 8 games, and they're playing Jokic, they're playing Embiid. He's DNP CD. Like that ship has sailed. The only question is, are they ever going to be able to shed that contract before it expires in 2+ years?
So here's the good news. Here's the good news. I think the Thunder, every time you think the Thunder are ready to not throw it in the towel, but like Shea's been out here and there, whatever, they keep winning. They've won 2 in a row now. It does feel like there should develop some sort of gap between 8 and then 9 and 10. Like 6, 7, 8 right now are Minnesota, Dallas, Clippers, Golden State's 5. New Orleans is 9th. They've just been destroyed by injuries.
We don't know when Zion's coming back.
Utah's 10th. They traded a bunch of guys and have had injury issues themselves. Then it's the Lakers, Thunder, Blazers behind them. It feels like the floor for Dallas should be 8th. It feels like the floor for the Clippers should be 8th, despite the fact that they just lost 4 in a row or whatever. You
mentioned Oklahoma City just won 2 in a row. Those are both over the Jazz, and I'm not sure.
Hey, you gotta count them. They count.
Those losses.
They count. How much of the Spurs Rockets double dip did you watch over the weekend? Really, did you dive deep into that one?
I can honestly admit that I watched 0 seconds.
It's the proper answer. Rockets had a couple of good games. I did not watch either of them.
The
Rockets
didn't.
And the Spurs.
No, the Spurs had a couple of good games.
Well, the Rockets hung 142 on them last night.
Yeah,
my brain. Now the wheels are turning. The wheels are turning. What was I saying? Oh, the floor should be 8. But okay,
yeah.
Perk
by the
is
way,
always
the Clippers Mavs is a play-in. And then listen, Zach, I know we're on Mavs right now, but I'm just telling you, street lights versus spotlights could be decided in the second play-in. Win or go home, baby. Oh, the Battle of LA coming down to that second play-in game, baby. Come on. What gets better than that?
Oh, man. Blacktop versus something.
After that. What was it? I thought it was Streetlight versus Spotlight. Was that?
That was one of them. I feel like there were a few of them.
Okay.
Like
I tell you, that's OD, the Omen Date and Dave YouTube hit show. But no, it's the Lakers have made major progress. He's back to being a Mac 11 seed, almost back to the original nickname of Mac 10 seed.
Oh my God, just the LA slander.
I promoted their YouTube show, by the way. Howdy Partners this week, having Kendra Andrews on to discuss those Golden State Warriors.
Yeah, it's not LA basketball.
Collective plug while I'm here.
LA basketball, 34-33 Clippers, 31-34 Lakers. What were we talking about? The Mavs. Perk is always yelling at me about how nobody plays defense anymore. And all this, like, they don't let you play defense anymore because you can't touch anybody. And defense doesn't really matter. And I think teams like the Kings and the Mavericks are going to be the ultimate test cases of that, because I will always believe that to win the NBA title, you need to be able to defend really well, because no matter how much they tilt the game to offense, there are going to be cold shooting nights and whatever, and defense is going to sing at least somewhat loudly in the end. But you are not going to stop Dallas. Like, they will have cold shooting nights. Reggie Bullock will go 1 for 10. Josh Green will go 0 for 5. Kleber will miss his shots. Christian Wood will either miss or he'll get pulled from the game because Jason Kidd doesn't trust his defense. If they have those two dudes on the floor, and they have run a grand total of 11 pick and rolls together in 7 games, so they're just not even scratching the surface. They're looking for the surface of that. If you just have those dudes on the floor and one of them's handling the ball up top and the other guy's one pass away on the wing, or Kyrie's pushing the pace and Luka's trailing, you are not stopping them. There was one 4-possession stretch yesterday at the game where you were at, where Terrence Ross got in the game in the third quarter or maybe early in the fourth quarter, and 4 straight possessions, twice Luka, twice Kyrie. Like, all right, where's Terrence Ross? Terrence Ross? Bring his guy to me. And it's like, and one post up, step back 3, blow by layup, post up again.
Well, and the Suns' choice was, hey, are we going to let them just extend invitations and make Josh Okogie and or Torrey Craig take wide open corner threes and brick them, or we're going to have no hope to defend on the other end, because those are the guys who have any hope of defending Luka and or Kyrie. But Zach, to your point, these are all 5 losses when Luka and Kyrie played together are games that were decided in the final seconds. And the Mavericks scored 128, there's OT, but still 128, 121, 108, 122, and 126.
Like, it's obvious to me watching the two teams play each other that Phoenix is a significantly better two-way team than Dallas. They're bigger, they're longer, they're tougher. From Durant to Ayton, Paul is still a pestle. He's lost a half a step at least. They're just they're a better defensive team. They're just better.
But Booker's a better defender than Luka.
Yeah, I think nobody would argue that. But all that said, like, they barely won because Dallas's offense is that good. Like, Luka had an off game.
Luka had an off game and missed a bunny at the end, or who knows? Maybe Katie or Booker would have hit a game winner with they had 3.5 seconds to work with. The Suns certainly could have won in overtime. But if Luka, who didn't play well by his standards yesterday, hits a very easy shot at the end, it's tied up with 3.5 seconds left.
Yeah, you and I both, when the trade happened, kind of, I believe, I don't want to put words in your mouth, I believe we both said we kind of don't buy the idea that the Mavs are now instant contenders, like contenders.
Never bought that. I don't believe they are. I don't believe
I don't believe they are either, because I just think defensively they're going to be too challenged. And I just, despite everything that Perk says all the time and the evidence bearing it out, and the fact that you're just not going to stop this team. They're not going to run into a team that holds them to 105 points 3 times in a row. It's not going to happen. I just think to win 3 or 4 playoff series, which is what they are signing up to try to do. Like, don't let their record fool you. Like, they went all in on Kyrie. They're going to be boxed into a corner this summer to re-sign him. To win that many playoff series in a row against this level of competition, it is hard to do that when you've got to win like 128, 124 over and over and over and over again. The margins, even in an era that's tilting offense, in a rules landscape that favors offense, I just still am skeptical that your defensive ceiling or defensive floor is so low, or whatever the right term is. I guess whatever it is.
They're just too bad on defense.
I just think it's still so hard to win that many playoff series that way but they're going to be in every game because of their offense.
Well, yeah, they didn't have a chance before the trade at all. And I think their chance went from 0% to whatever we call 1%, right? Because Luka and Kyrie not only are either capable of taking over a playoff game, a playoff series at any time, but like they're going to light it up. I think Luka and Kyrie Luka needed a co-star to have a real chance to contend for a championship, but they don't have a championship caliber or even a contending caliber supporting cast around them. Because look, you look at the team that went to the West Finals last year, you've lost, I'm going to say, your second best player,
Brunson,
and we might be able to argue third and fourth best player. At least you've lost
Dinwiddie, Finney-Smith.
I would go the other way around, but sure.
Yeah, but I wasn't ordering them. I'm just saying.
Yeah. What you're talking about. Right. So, like what they were a co-star away. And look,
they had, to your point earlier, Maxi Kleba, like, if we need you to play 35 minutes a game and come in like 3 minutes in because of the spacing issues, like, you're ready to do that. And is he going to be ready to do that? I don't know,
Yeah, you're and now you've got the co-star, but your supporting cast has taken some huge hits. The whole Brunson thing, they might have already had the co-star, but that ship is long sailed, and we've discussed that many, many times. By the way, how many straight have the Knicks won?
9. 9.
Who was player of the month in the East last month? Do you know?
Jalen Brunson or Julius Randle? I don't know. One of them was Jalen Brunson. I don't pay a lot of attention to the player of the blank awards, but I knew Jalen Brunson won some. He scores 30 points every game, and then he doesn't play, and Emmanuel quickly scores 38 points in 79 minutes. I think he played yesterday for Tibbs. All right. Enough Mavs talk for now. We'll have a lot of time to talk about all these things. He is part of the Hoop Collective. He is the host of Howdy Partners.
Oh, I love that.
He is Tim MacMahon. You can read him, you can watch him, you can listen to him. He is an expert on many, many things in the NBA. Thank you, sir.
Hey, it is always a pleasure to come on here. You are so much more gracious of a host than Wendy. You don't ask for extra security when I want to take you out to dinner. I mean, I love coming on here and joining you.
Thank you, sir. Be well.
All right, brother. Adios, amigos.
Let's talk about the most confounding team, the most baffling team that I think I can even remember in my 13 years or whatever it is of covering the NBA. I've never encountered a team that I just don't get it. I don't get it. Kendra Andrews, you cover this team, the Golden State Warriors. How are you? Thank you for joining us.
I'm good, Zach. How are you?
Well, I'm still confused, Kendra. I'm still confused because Steph Curry made his long-awaited ballyhooed return to a team that had won without him, won 5 in a row, all at home. At home, in their home, without him. They are 14-12 for the season without Steph Curry, which is amazing considering it looked early on like, how are we going to score? We're dead. We're not going to be able to put up any points. They're 2 games over 500 without Steph and 3 games over 500 for the season. They are 34-31. This is the defending champions, by the way, the defending NBA champions. 34-31, 14th in offense. That's not bad. 13th in defense, which for all the hand wringing and whatever about how they can't stop fouling, they don't get any rebounds. Oh my God, they're 13th in defense. That's pretty good. 11th in net rating. 11th. That's almost top 10. That's pretty good. 27-7 at home and 7-24 on the road.
Yep.
With another road loss in Steph's ballyhooed return, they went on the road and they lost to the Lakers without LeBron. They have the 3rd toughest schedule remaining in the Western Conference. They have 3 more road games than home games, which is kind of like saying you might as well just pencil them in for 3 automatic more losses than whatever. And these are big games because although it feels like, oh, they've righted the ship, they're good. The projection systems that I use, there's a site called Playoff Status that I really love. Basketball Reference, everybody knows that one. Have them like about 50-50 and a little bit less maybe to avoid the play-in, which means 50% in the play-in, and they don't need anyone to tell them that if you're in the play-in, I don't care if you're 7th, 8th, 9th, or 10th, it's not a great place to be. Kendra,
Yeah.
do you have any answers for me? Because I just don't understand. I don't understand.
I wish I had all the answers. It's funny. I did NBA Countdown radio yesterday, and I was on with them, and they said, we asked you this before, if you had all the answers, you'd be on Steve Kerr's coaching staff, because no one seems to have an answer. Real quick, Zach, I think with that schedule, the other thing you have to look at, all but 3 of those games are against Western Conference opponents who are also in this super tight race for either a play-in or a lower playoff spot. But it's getting really hard to find the answers. And even when you talk to the team and you ask the team, like I asked Draymond just last night after the Lakers game about this crazy road split. And I said, what is a tangible thing you can point to say why? And he said the same thing. If I knew the answer, you bet I would tell you. You bet I'd be yelling it in the locker room, yelling it from the mountaintops of what it is. And it's hard to put your finger on because, like you said, their record without Steph isn't bad, right? They're about a 500 team with him and without him. So it's not, okay, well, Steph's missing. That's not it. You look at other people that they're missing. I think Andrew Wiggins' absence, and honestly, even before he stepped away from the team, his production this season has just plummeted from last year. And he was such an important part of the team last year. They're missing key players like, Gary Payton II, who, yes, he is back on the roster, but is not playing. You lost Otto Porter Jr. You lost other guys who were really key contributors, both on offense and defense. And that's not to say they don't have a good roster, but I think when you look at all the things that made them such a dangerous team last year, they're still trying to figure out how to get there. Execution has been a really big issue with this team for most of the season, and they finally figured out how to start executing at home when everyone's on their side. But on the road, still in crucial moments, because they haven't been blown out on the road, really. It's all come down to really tight games that are lost in the last few minutes. On the road, they're just really struggling to execute down the stretch, and it's resulting in games like Sundays against the Lakers.
Yeah, but when you're playing on the road and you're losing tight games to like Charlotte and Detroit, I don't really care that they're tight games. It's like, can you just win the game? Can you just maybe win? You're the Golden State Warriors. Can you just win? So let's start with the most important question facing the team before we get into the fun stuff. One of the reasons that I've been just continuously optimistic about the Warriors despite mounting evidence, I just will say a run is coming. It's going to happen. And maybe, I guess they just did win 5 in a row at home, is that they're starting 5 in now just 331 minutes, because Wiggins has been out for so long, is plus 22 per 100 possessions, is maybe the best starting 5 in basketball. That's obviously Steph, Clay. How about Clay, by the way? All year long, including on TV in a rant where I kind of became unhinged a little bit in response to Barkley, who I love, kind of writing off Clay. I said when Clay said, I'm betting on myself, I yelled and screamed, I would bet on Clay. Clay's awesome. Clay's shooting 42% from 3. Clay's not the problem. What do we know about Wiggins? Where is Wiggins? What's going on with Wiggins?
Zach, I again, another answer that I wish I had for you, and everyone within the team, outside of the team is being really tight-lipped on what is going on with Andrew Wiggins. I can tell you that it's not him. He is physically okay, but they're just saying it's a family matter. There's still no timetable. We ask nearly every day if there's a timetable on when he'll be rejoining the team, if he's around the team, is he coming back to the team? And they just say no.
Okay, so I call that the most important question, because we can get into all these stuff, these lineup issues and stuff and numbers that we're going to get into. The run is not coming in the playoffs without Andrew Wiggins. He's that important a part of their team. I thought he started off this season, maybe after a couple weeks, looking really like the Andrew Wiggins who was in the playoffs last year, and then started to kind of fritter away and then is gone now. And I hope, we just wish him well and hope that he and his family are okay. But as a team, they're not going to be the team without him. So in searching for explanations, I just have never encountered a team like this. You go for everything from the ephemeral, the intangible, chemistry. And this season, of course, started with Draymond Green punching Jordan Poole in the face in an act of aggression that had all sorts of potential layers to it. Young versus old, the new generation versus the the founding generation, money, Draymond's contract, and all that. And no matter how many times I hear we're past it, we're over it, it has no effect on our team, I will never really believe that. I still think there's some lingering effect on chemistry, on Draymond's sort of standing to yell and scream at everybody the way that he wants to and has so effectively. I still think that's a thing. And yet, maybe all the mystical chemistry stuff, maybe it's just this simple, Kendra. If you look at their home and road numbers, the difference is all defense. The offense is the same, home versus road. And you dig in further, almost the entire difference on defense. At home, their opponents are shooting 32% from three. That's the lowest figure in the league. On the road, their opponents are shooting 40.5% from three. That's the second highest figure in the league. Maybe that's all it is. Now, you can tell me, well, there are more breakdowns on the road that lead to the open threes, and the threes are better and better shooters are getting them. Like, okay, prove that to me. Because when I see numbers like that, I see luck both ways. And I see, if the luck just sort of evens out and they just become an average 3-point shooting allowed team on both whatever court, Mars, Jupiter, here, San Francisco, if they go back to Oakland, I still think that their defense is somewhere in the middle of where it is at home versus on the road. And that's a really, really good defense.
Yeah, it was interesting. The last game before the playoffs, before the All-Star break, they lost on the road to the Clippers. And in that post-game press conference, Draymond Green just laid into their defense, pretty much just saying there are people on this team who don't have that will to defend collectively, right?
It has to come from within. Defense is all about a will, a want to defend. Defense isn't fun. Just gotta want to do it if you want to win.
This is the untouchable.
Right.
We can't see it. We can't prove it. It's will. It's urgency. It's chemistry.
Exactly. He said, there's things that you can see when it's your one-on-one defense. Okay, you're guarding your guy who has the ball. As soon as they move off the ball, there are certain people, again, who stop defending and don't have that collective will defense. And it is a lot on the perimeter. You look at certain players, Jordan Poole is a guy who's really had to step up in defense, whether he's done that to the amount that they need or not. It's probably a no, but
it's a no. So I'll just say, I'll scratch the probably and just say it's a no.
It's a no. You have guys like Jonathan Kuminga who are taking, big steps forward, who are really trying to work at this, not fouling. He's fouling way less. He's taking good steps, but still as a collective, like you said, especially on that perimeter defense, there are moments where it just absolutely collapses and you're seeing teams just bomb away threes. And that's how they end up building these insane leads in the first quarter. All of their losses on the road, I think they trailed pretty big in the first. And then, they scratch and claw their way back. But it's that opening quarter where teams are just shooting away because there's no strong perimeter defense that gives them the cushion And then the Warriors are playing catch up all game.
Well, who starts games for them that hasn't been starting lately other than Curry? And it's Wiggins. And I just, this all is moot until he comes back. And until then, what they really just need to do is try like hell to get out of the play-in. Not only the play-in, but right now,
they don't want that 4 or 5.
Well, I'm saying we're shaping up now. Look, the Memphis situation, as Tim MacMahon and I discussed, has become a quagmire of crap. But so who knows what's going to happen with them? I mean, they don't have Adams, they don't have Morant. Dylan Brooks apparently will be suspended every other game because I don't think he can help himself from getting technicals. If this 1-4-5 ends up being Denver, Phoenix, Golden State, that's just bad for all those teams. That's bad for everyone involved. But that's an issue for another day. And you're right. It's been all season, the perimeter defense, the breakdowns, the blow-bys that lead to the reaching, that lead to the fouling and all of this. And look, their free throws, they are a high foul team no matter where they play. It's a little worse on the road, but it amounts to 2 free throw attempts per game. That's not a huge difference. The rebounding's the same. The shooting numbers are, from what we can see, are about the same. Other than the 3-point shooting, it's all 3-point shooting, home versus road. That's the whole thing. And maybe it's just that. Maybe it's just they've had the most crazy random home road shooting season of all time. I don't know.
It's I think any person that you ask in that locker room, in that organization, feels a similar way. And Steph even said it the other night. He's like, our splits have been abysmal in every single category. And you kind of just went through every single category that there is. And it does make you wonder, though, kind of what would they look like if that perimeter defense on the road just got a smidge better, if things got a smidge better, because the part that's concerning to me, or just makes you scratch your head and think, is that you have 17 games left in the season, and this has been what it's been all season long. There have been areas of growth, but again, as you're looking at the standings, you're looking at this playoff push, you're looking at potential matchups in the playoffs, you always hold out hope for the Warriors. You always hold out just this like they could get it. No one, I've been talking to Western Conference teams around the league, no one wants to face the Warriors in the first round because everyone knows what they're capable of. But at the same time, there is no body of work this season to point to and say that is what they can do when they're just on. Last season, they started the year 18.
But there is a body of work. It's the body of work in San Francisco. 27-7 plus 8 per 100 possessions. Like, they have the 3rd best defense at home of all teams. And Denver, by the way, is 4th. That's something, they're getting lucky with threes too. But if Denver's a real defense at home, that's a little scary. That's the body of work. And I can't quit them. I can't. They are still on my
only one.
They're still on my short list of teams that could win the West, realistically win the West, over Sacramento, over Dallas.
I'd agree.
Over the Clippers. I can't believe I'm saying over the Clippers because I picked them to win the West before the season, and I just don't know what the hell is going on.
No, I mean, like, looking at how they've come out of the All-Star break.
I just mean, I don't even want to talk about the Clippers. I've talked about them too much. I don't know what is going on with them in like the most meta sense possible. I don't know what's happening. I don't know what they were thinking signing Russ. I don't really know why he gets to walk in the door and play 35 minutes a game and start despite turning it over all the time. He's been okay for them. Okay.
Yeah.
It's just Russ is like, even when he's productive, the fact that people will treat him like Draymond treated him during their recent game where they just don't guard him.
I was just going to say
the fact that he turns it over all the time and is a minus on defense, even when he's productive, he's just like throwing a grenade into your team. He just changes everything about the structure of your team. And I've said, now we're on a Clippers tangent, but I've said since they got him, and since it was clear that we're not just getting him, like he gets minted right away as a starter,
I was surprised because I thought that when they acquired Bones Highland, and not saying that Bones has to be a starter stuff, but they inserted him into their system, and right away you started to see that little spark that he kind of had maybe earlier in his stint with Denver. And then you throw kind of Russ into the mix. And it was interesting hearing what Draymond said about sagging off of him, because he didn't say, he's like, Russ is a decent shooter. Everyone makes everything about the shots, blah, blah, blah. He's like, but it's the mental games that we were playing with him to get in his head by leaving him with 5 feet of space every single time. And it's just it's an interesting.
Look, to me, even when it's quote unquote working, it's such a late in the game stylistic grenade that, to me, the most alarming part of all of it was they don't believe in their team anymore. If you're throwing that grenade into your team in game 65, it means either your best players, your coaches, your front office, some combination of all those things no longer believe that the team you spent 4 years building to this season, the biggest season in the history of the team, can win. And that's the most alarming thing. Back to the Warriors. I believe they can win. And I've said this all year, and I feel like an insane person because I check the numbers every week to make sure the numbers are still there. The starting lineup I mentioned, plus 22 per 100 possessions. That's very good. Their 3 best bench players when they're whole are Poole, who's been wildly up and down, and I think mostly kind of DiVincenzo, who's been outstanding, and you and I talked when they signed him that I was already annoyed at what a perfect Warrior he is, and lo and behold,
you did.
And Kuminga, who I rather infamously said last year I would lose no sleep over having drafted Kuminga over Franz Wagner and look like a moron. Until now, I'm starting to look a little less like a moron. When those 3 are on the floor with no Curry, plus 7 per 100 possessions. When Draymond's on the floor, no Curry, plus 7 per 100 possessions, or plus 5, I think. I'm sorry. JaMychal Green is starting to become a part of the rotation. Gary Payton II will come back at some point and add another guard. Anthony Lamb is kind of the 9th guy right now. I would assume they're going to convert his 2-way into a real contract now that that's. Is that correct? Was my assumption, do you think, correct?
I think correct. Yeah. I think that's something that Steve Kerr said out loud that he wants last night. I know that the organization's a fan, so it's cooking.
He's been great. He moves the ball. He defends lots of positions. He's smart. He fits into how they play, and fitting into how they play is a big part of a huge part of the game for them, because how they play, being so different from how other teams play, is a competitive advantage, I think, for them. And it's one of the reasons why, when presented with the choice of Sadiq Bey or Gary Payton II in a vacuum, I thought they should have taken Sadiq Bey. They disagreed because Gary Payton knows how to play. You put all those pieces together, Kendra, a starting lineup that works, a bench rotation that works. The numbers are sitting there screaming, if they ever get whole, watch the hell out. And the numbers just, there's such a dissonance between the numbers and the record. But you know what? I'm listening to the numbers and I say, if they ever get whole, watch the hell out.
Go with the numbers. Listen, I was looking at the standings the other day and kind of playing like pretend matchups and stuff. I like, kind of like you were just saying, I think outside of the Phoenix Suns, if I'm the Warriors, the one team I really don't want to see in the first round is the Phoenix Suns. Other than that, I think they have a good chance against any of those Western Conference teams. And once they're healthy, once they start, everything starts clicking together, even as they get whole again, I agree. There's no reason why you should be counting this team out. The potential on paper is pretty astounding.
I'm counting them in almost, but I'll tell you this, Kendra, my brain cannot decide yet if Phoenix Golden State in the first round, i.e. Durant Golden State in the first round, is going to be such incredible theater that I want it, or that the revisiting of Durant's free agency decision is going to be so eye-rollingly bad and repetitive that I would like them to avoid each other until the last possible. I can't decide.
It's a tough thing. I mean, would you like, because then the other side, do you want like a Dallas Phoenix series earlier on with kind of how that's been brewing? I agree with the storyline part of it. the KD free agency, Warriors would be a topic of conversation nearly every day for like a week, as long as that series plays out. But I think in terms of like basketball played, it would be, I think that would be an incredible series that I personally would want to see later in the playoffs, just because I think it would be such a fun series to watch.
Well, Phoenix is creeping up. They're 3 out of Sacramento, 4 out of Memphis. That's a lot, though, with this time remaining. It's not that a lot with Kevin Durant on your team. Boy, if the Warriors could somehow, it's a tough game to play, and it risks angering the basketball gods who are vengeful and pay attention to everything.
Oh, they do.
If they could finagle their way into the 6th seed and have a Sacramento, Memphis, or whoever road to the conference finals, I think I'd pick them to win all those series until the conference finals. If they get Phoenix in the first round,
right?
Again, just to review math, they will have to win a road game at some point to advance out of any playoff series. They can't beat anyone on the road. It's just incredible.
No. And I'm one of the upcoming road games that I am so curious to see is their Friday matchup at Memphis. Zach, it's the first time that they're going to be in Memphis this season. Yeah, you and Tim just talked all about everything that's happening. It's a weird time, but I think because of just how weird it is for the Grizzlies right now, I think that environment against this Warriors team is going to be more hostile than ever. Let's assume that Dillon Brooks isn't suspended that game and is available. Who knows what Ja's status is going to be, but I think that is going to be an extreme test for them, because that's going to be the most hostile environment they've had to play in all season long. They haven't done well on the road as we've talked about. So I'm curious to see how they handle that kind of situation and what kind of game that turns out to be.
What happens if Dillon Brooks and Draymond Green get a double technical in the same game? Because Draymond's at 15, right?
Draymond's suspended.
If they get a double technical in the same game, I think they should stop the game and hold some kind of ceremony commemorating the moment.
LeBron style, Steph Curry 3-point, LeBron scoring title
Rasheed
style,
Wallace should have to attend that game as some sort of baton handoff to Dillon Brooks and Draymond Green.
Court, all of them thumbs up center court.
I want to give love to a couple of guys on the Warriors. DiVincenzo, we just hit.
Yes.
And Kuminga seems like kind of their way better version of Mario Chalmers, where all the veterans and coaches are constantly yelling at him. In fact, there was a sequence yesterday, I don't know if you could see it at the game, where he was bringing the ball up and Jordan Poole was ahead of him on the left wing and Curry was ahead of Jordan Poole on the left wing. And everybody was yelling for Kuminga to throw the ball ahead to Poole. And he didn't. And he kind of shrugged at Poole after passing it off. Then the possession went on. And I think it ended with Kuminga hitting a corner 3. And he turned to his own bench. And his back was to the camera, but it looked like he was talking / pumping up his own bench. Maybe I didn't do the thing you all wanted me to do in your beautiful game, but I can do some other stuff that maybe isn't in your beautiful game that's really good. I make a list of everyone that he guards on purpose.
It's insane.
Brown, Brogdon in the same game, Levine, DeRozan, Giannis, Middleton, LeBron. He has changed their team.
Yeah.
I think he's fit into the way they play about as well as any kind of score first, bouncy young player could, in terms of moving the ball and keeping it moving and handoffs. He and DiVincenzo have really changed their team. I think Kuminga is going to be really, really good.
I think Kuminga is going to be great. It was a couple months ago, and we were talking to Draymond just about Kuminga and his defense evolution. And the thing that Draymond said that stuck out to me is Draymond said, people think that Draymond Green, play team defense, blah, 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 blah. But when you're that good at something, it evolves around you and everything becomes around how you do it. Like stuff on offense. He's like, that's how I do it. He goes, Jonathan Kuminga has that kind of potential on this team where as, the guards start to change and as I move on, as Steph and plays the end of their career nears, Jonathan Kuminga has the potential to become that centerpiece and have the defense evolve around what he has to do and what he's capable of doing. So that's the kind of ceiling that this team sees in Jonathan Kuminga. They see the bounciness and athleticism. They see the defense. Yeah, he can be an incredibly elite two-way player. And especially without Wiggins, that list of defenders and GP2, the list of defenders that you just read off, that's his thing. And he loves that. He goes in there asking Steve Kerr, I want to take Jason Tatum. I want to take Jaylen Brown. I want to be the one who has to defend these guys. I want to be on Kawhi Leonard. I want to be on PG. That's the kind of pride that he takes in his ability and his learning curve. This is how I'm going to learn, right? I'm getting rid of the chaotic fouling to an extent, still a little there, but to an extent. So I want to get on these guys because that's the way I'm going to learn. And it's like when he's on, he's an electric player to watch.
And offensively, a couple of little things. In the last few weeks, he's looked more patient to me when he has a size mismatch. Like he's not rushing it. He's backing down. He's taking his time. He's thinking about his moves and his counters. He's developed a nice little up and under that works a lot, except he keeps missing the finish, but like he's getting the pump fake and he's open on the slide under. Then I think it was against the Raptors. I made note of it. The Raptors were playing zone and he noticed JaMychal Green had the ball and Kuminga noticed that DiVincenzo was open somewhere in the zone. I think it was like in the middle of the zone and JaMychal Green didn't see it and passed it instead to Kuminga. And he did that thing where he barely even had the ball and it was out of his hands to DiVincenzo where he had been saying all along it needed to go. And that's like a Draymond Iguodala thing that you see when they get impatient with other people who don't see the stuff that they see. And when they get it, they execute what they see. Just some Kuminga love. And the last thing we'll end with is you mentioned Poole earlier. Hovering over all of this is the massive decisions they have to make in the summer, which is a topic that I don't really want to talk too much about because I enjoy this team and I believe in my basketball soul believes that Steph, Clay, and Draymond should play together forever.
Yes.
I am monitoring very carefully the Steph, Clay, Poole minutes. They're -6 per 100 possessions in 340 something minutes this year. They were absolute gangbusters, like plus 35 per 100 possessions in only 129 minutes last regular season. They played more minutes in the playoffs last year, those three together, than they did in the regular season. And they were about even after scorching the regular season. And round by round, as the opponents got bigger, badder, meaner, they played less and less together. And the pool party lineup, with Wiggins and Draymond and the three guards kind of dissipated away. If you conclude that you can't play all three of those guys together for like big minutes, I think that has implications for how you have to handle this going forward, given the tax concerns and who knows what happens, but it's just something I'm watching. That's all.
Yeah, no, it's something to watch how they do the playoffs, the lineups they use, whether they go small, whether they go big. It's so matchup based. They're so unconventional in the way that they like to go. Like against some typical bigs that you might think they're just going to be tearing it up. They go with a small ball lineup, right? Whether Kevon Looney's been a guy who's been in and out of the starting lineup so much. I
can't believe we haven't said the poor guy's name yet. It's like, you guys, so
Iron
good.
Man.
He's
Iron
so
Man. Talk
good.
about giving some guys some love, right? And he's been a guy who's been so adaptable to whatever it is that they're doing, right? Hey, Kevon, start. Kevon, you're not starting. Jordan Poole is starting. The way that they mishmash, even if their regular starting five is the most lethal, dominant, their strongest lineup, what they do with their lineups is can be different on a night-to-night basis. And watching in the playoffs how they manage whoever their matchup is going to be. It's a tactical decision that they do. It's one that usually works out for them. And so it's going to be interesting to see, not only in the playoffs, in my opinion, but this final stretch as all these games become so important. How are they going to manage it? Because I do agree with you at the end of the day, Jordan Poole's overall season has been meh.
Meh.
But
official designation, man.
Official.
You mentioned the lineup changes and all that, and the big one for them in the finals last year was starting Otto Porter over Looney and going to kind of a hybrid lineup. And without Wiggins and without Otto Porter, obviously, it basically didn't play this year. Those lineups have been smaller lately. The Draymond at center lineups are trending pretty small. Andre came back yesterday. We'll see how he fits in. Lamb's got some size. I just think that's where the Kuminga piece can come in for them. Maybe not this year. Maybe, I don't know if Kerr will trust it that much, but just the size that he has is big for them. But they need Wiggins for that too. Okay, Kendra Andrews, you got to go. You do a fantastic job covering this weirdo team. Keep it up, and I will see you down the line. Thank you, Kendra.
I'll see you soon. Thanks, Zach.